Many of us have faced mysterious health problems that no one can seem to explain. Conditions that worsen over time and are often labeled genetic or incurable or simply unsolvable. But what if many of these challenges could actually be reversed by looking deeper, down into the cellular level? Today's guest shares overlooked clues, root causes, and practical strategies that can reveal what's really happening inside of our bodies and open the door to real healing and renewed hope. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to LifeTVnow, where we unpack all matters of truth, faith, and freedom. I'm your host, Joe Artis Horn. Today's program is going to be incredible, and I know it's already resonating here in my heart that many of you watching this program are probably about to experience a watershed moment where God is going to take you from what you thought you knew about medicine, and He's going to begin to reveal a whole new method for reclaiming life and vitality. But before we dive in, let me introduce who's here. She's an integrative nutrition health coach with a Master of Science in Health Education. Please welcome my co-host, Jamie Woodle. And she's a medical scientist with a master's in immunotoxicology and her PhD fellowship in autoimmune disease. Please welcome the one and only Dorinda Smith. I am so excited about today's program. We're going to be diving into something that I've been through many, many years ago. I know that Jamie Woodle is now going through, but it's something that a lot of people are confronted by, and usually so when they finally leave kind of allopathic medicine, or maybe they've decided that they've been through every test that exists and they're still grappling with weight issues or type 2 diabetes or inflammation or digestion. And they'll approach someone maybe from the natural sphere of things, a holistic practitioner, somebody that focuses on God's medicine, His ability to nourish our cells if we present the right vitamins and minerals and detox methodologies and so forth. But in order to make those determinations, they'll offer things like a genetic test. Now, here's what I want to say at the very onset. I'm becoming a fan again of genetic testing. Years and years ago, I went through this when it was discovered that I had two genetic SNPs, both hetero and homozygous MTHFR, which is the short acronym for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. And for those that are like, okay, you've already lost me, it's a genetic SNP that means that I may have difficulty processing and absorbing vitamin Bs, which have everything to do with your neurology, your ability to remember things and to focus on words or learn or remember why you walked into a room. These are areas of health where traditionally allopathic medicine, they're not looking at your genetics and then trying to quantify whether you have a B deficiency. They'll do a blood lab that'll more than likely tell them that you have plenty of B in the system, but whether it's in the system or available to the cells,
that's right,
completely different. I was for years struggling with your B12 is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. Your blood says it's fine. You got tons. And when I started to learn certain things about my own genetics, I had this watershed moment, Dorinda, where I thought, now we're going to find how to nourish my body. And you might recall years and years ago, I did a program on MTHFR in the old Skywatch television studios, and I talked about not being a big fan of genetic tests. Mm. I said that, and I meant it when I said it, because at the time I was being encouraged to look at total detox first. We don't need these expensive genetic tests, etc. And I boasted that I eat a lot of eggs and I should have plenty of B12. But if you'll recall, at the same time, I used to talk about only having a 75 percentile feeling of recovery from the days when I was dying. Mm. And so I would say there are still things we're working through, we're trying to get to the bottom of. And so I am here to be persuaded. I still am not one that, encourages people to rush day one to something like a genetic test, because I do believe if there are some low-hanging fruit ways to start with, getting some nutrition in the system and see if you don't feel 100%. Maybe you don't need to rush to these tests. Yeah. But on the other hand, one of the reasons I say I've become kind of a fan again is because I feel like there's a time and a place when determinations have not been conclusive. Mm-hmm. Maybe when people feel like they are spinning their wheels or starting over every week, that maybe things like a genetic test could be very illuminating for that person because of this thing we call bio-individuality. So what I want to talk about today is your views of when you think it's worth testing. And I know I keep saying the words genetic tests. There are lots of tests. Hormone labs, there are K panels that look at a prostate function or a certain inflammatory marker. When do you think it's appropriate? When somebody sees you, for example, at your practice, that we're going to talk about in a few minutes as well before we end this program. I know that you're a fan of tests, don't guess, but I do see people often racing to myriad tests and then dogpiling people with supplements. And I'm also not that guy. Somewhere in the middle, do you agree? Somewhere in the middle, a rational approach to diagnosing underlying root causes and then tailoring a plan for an individual's need rather than just shotgun blast, test everything, and then dogpile supplements.
Right. And you're exactly right. And so when people come to us, first of all, I'm going to sit down and talk to them for a good long time. And I'm going to see, where are they at spiritually? Where are they at emotionally? Where are they at financially? Where are they at knowledge-wise as far as understanding? Have they been following natural ways of healing for a long time? Are they watching all the gurus? Are they confused? Where are they? Right? Because really, everyone heals. Everyone has their own specific healing journey. God made it that way. Because, he could just look down at us in the minute that we look up and say, okay, I've got a chronic illness now, or I've got multiple symptoms. Lord, I need you to heal me. And if he wanted to, he could just go, zap, there you go, because I want you to do the work in the kingdom and you need to be healthy. So there you go, boom, zap. That's not the way he does it. And what I've learned
often. We have seen those miraculous exceptions. I have witnessed them with my own eyes, which also makes it hard when you're not one of the ones that gets that instant healing.
But that's because he's got a purpose and a plan to bring us through in order to help us to grow more Christ-like. And I've seen it in every single one of our clients. I've seen it in me. And so really, everyone's health journey, it just needs to start with someone listening to the person and seeing where they're at. What can they afford? I know my own personal health journey. I was absolutely broke when I first started learning how to heal. Right? I could not afford multiple tests. There was no way. I couldn't even get a credit card in order to pay for anything. Okay. And so really, I did have to start with the basics. And honestly, that's what we love to do, is just start people with the basics and see. Someone was saying to me recently, they said, but my diet is terrible and I really don't know where to start. Well, then let's start there.
Right.
Because really getting your diet more aligned with the way God really meant us to eat in the first place, without all the toxins, without all the junk, okay? It doesn't mean that we have to be perfect, but it does mean that we do need to make some changes, because there's no way we're going to get well if we're still adding the poisons.
Right.
Okay, you can't keep adding the poisons and expect to get well. So we really do have to help people at those baby step levels and helping people to get their confidence back, to realize that once you do start taking those steps and you do actually start feeling a little bit more energy, and your inflammation starts coming down and you have less symptoms, and you start to realize there's this wonderful thing that happens in your hormones in your brain, and you just go, maybe I do have more control over this than I've been led to believe.
Yes. Yeah, one of the goals of this program, and I said this in the pilot, is I want viewers to feel like they're getting their agency back. Agency that the Babylonian construct, whether intentional or not, has taken from them.
That's right.
A total dependency on pharmaceuticals and doctors telling them what to swallow and what to do and what to cut out. And these people are hostage. They are under the belief that that is the best that the brilliant minds of planet Earth with their big fancy gizmos and machines can offer. And next to zero of it has one thing to do with God's plan to restore.
Yeah, that's man's best. That's not God's best.
That's right. And when you get to herbal support and you get into the medicine that God has given us right out of the land, that is, in my view, the most likely path to a person's restoration and the restoration of their vitality. And I just want to offer this to viewers that missed previous episodes where Dorinda was here in studio with us. We're not going to do this today. Go back to the archives wherever it is that you watch LifeTVnow. Maybe download the Skywatch TV mobile app for free at the App Store, where all of our episodes exist. If you're not watching on YouTube, Rumble, Roku, the Faith and Freedom Network, wherever it is that you're watching the program, because Dorinda tells this story through brutal decades of 7 autoimmune conditions. Personally, she's walking through an abject nightmare before God showed her how healing was possible. And you, like me and like Jamie, had done everything allopathically that men offered. I had half my colon taken out. They were literally killing me with medications. And I don't say that nefariously. I don't mean that the doctors trying to help me were trying to kill me. I'm saying this is a problem we see in a lot of what we think of as mainstream medicine here in Western culture. It's not the doctors. Many of these are very good people. They're very smart. They're very smart people.
And they care.
And they care deeply. But it's the places of academia. It's the places where they're going, you, as a scientist in immunotoxicology, studying the modality of autoimmune disease and literally knew zero of years of being a scientist, knew zero about God's medicine or diet or his herbs. And that's why when you had your crisis, 7 autoimmune diseases into this, she's basically bedridden before she discovers that there's another way. There's God's medicine. There are practitioners and naturopaths, and we call it CAM, care and alternative medicine. These are often chiropractors that have, all kinds of knowledge about herbs and their application and the things that you rub topically and the things that overcome things like infection. And I remember years ago when my wife and I were first coming out of what I now call the Babylonian construct, and one of our daughters was having chronic UTIs. And she was on antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic. I was slowly recovering from my colon disaster and had kind of left Babylon and was trying to find a way to nourish myself. Very, very baby steps, day one type stuff. And I did a basic Google search and within 10 seconds had learned of something called D-mannose. One of nature's healing sugars that does not play with your glucose or your insulin at all, like, cane sugar.
From
glucose.
cranberries.
Yeah.
From cranberries, yes. And you've heard your grandma say, drink a bunch of cranberry juice. Well, D-mannose is the isolated concentrate. It's basically the extraction. So taking a capsule is like, taking immediately, 14 bags of cranberries. Like you'd
Without
never
all
eat
the
enough
sugar.
cranberries, without all the sugar. I asked my daughter's pediatrician at the time, who loved my daughter and was all in to help, have you ever heard of, and I pulled it up on my phone, D-mannose. And she said, D what?
Right.
And this is all wild. And by the way, the reason that part of this was chronic is because the first 3 antibiotics they had put her on, they never tested the culture to see which bacterium it was. And so she was just destroying her gut flora for no reason with a UTI
That's right.
that can't be touched by the strain of bacterium. By the grace of God, like one day after partnering a couple of, herbs and D-mannose together for bacteria and urinal flow, my daughter was improving immediately. And this was when we went and saw Matthew Sams at Healing Arts in Branson. All that to say, I asked him, I said, Dr. Sams, do you find that today in the world that we're living in, with what are being described by scientists, superbugs, superviruses, superbacterias, are you finding that the ones that they're saying are becoming resistant to antibiotics, and they keep coming up with new medications and so forth, that these new superbugs just can't be touched by nature anymore? Like we're way past the time we could have gone the route of God's medicine. And he is not a condescending person at all. So when I do this face, it's probably going to misrepresent, but he goes, just a Cheshire grin and a nod. And he says, actually, Joe, it's the opposite. He said it's the opposite. We're finding that these super bugs are becoming resistant to the antibiotics, and they have no idea how to deal with God's unadulterated medicine. But this is back when we're 2 months into this new idea that we're going to go see a Dorinda Smith type person. And I remember telling my wife at the time, man, I don't know, but if it gets real serious, like a sinus infection, we may have to, are we going to trust the medicine? My wife is here live. Do you remember, like 10 years ago, every time we were doing the natural thing and me kind of like biting my nails and go, and I felt like I was playing God with my kids. I was really nervous about it.
A lot of us have been there.
Where you're, because you've been told your whole life, man, things like strep throat.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're watching this program, this is not a blanket statement to go on Google and find some natural treatment for something and then ignore all allopathic insight. What I would encourage you to do is find an intelligent practitioner, somebody like a Dorinda Smith or a Jamie Woodle, that can walk you through how to do this safely and properly. But my family are enormous fans of avoiding all of the antibiotics at all juncture if we can.
If you can.
There are emergencies. If you're in a car accident, part of the radiator fluid flies through your thyroid and it's in your bloodstream, probably should get on emergency care right now.
Yeah.
Probably an IV drip of antibiotics.
Well, I know when I was on my own health journey after my big event that was my watershed moment, I did all of the allopathic testing. I went to my doctors and we did all the blood panels and all the allergy testing, and there were no answers. Like, we don't see anything here. You look perfectly happy for years. And I had, along my journey, developed some strange symptoms like dropping glasses randomly, falling asleep and jerking awake and having insomnia because of that. My body would not let me sleep. And I would go to the doctor. I had horrible cystic acne. And I would ask my physician who cared and wanted to help. And I brought up the idea of food sensitivity testing. Could there be maybe some allergies or lesser sensitivities that are causing inflammation and causing some of these weird anomalistic issues? And, the response was, well, probably not. We'll send you to a dermatologist. And if that doesn't work, then maybe the next thing we would look into would be an endocrinologist. And I just, in my heart, I knew. I went to the dermatologist and they wanted to put me on antibiotics and topical antibiotics. And I knew right away I was not going to do that. They gave me some medicine. I think it was a very strong retinol, made my skin weep and break out. It was weeping and breaking out and oozing. And so I just knew. I went online and I paid out of pocket to have a comprehensive food sensitivity test. And this was a IgG test, which is very controversial. And maybe in another show, we'll go deeper into that. But when I got the results back, and there were 26 foods that flagged that my body was reacting to because of leaky gut, which I had to work on healing. When I took those away, in 3 weeks, all of my symptoms were gone. All of them, except the acne, which takes about 3 months. It takes time for your skin to renew. And so, having said that, a lot of people, I think, probably have had all the tests done and maybe weren't given a lot of answers or hope. When someone comes to see a holistic practitioner, what kind of tests should they expect? How can they get help?
Yeah, well, the first thing that people should expect is a really good long consult where we're going to sit down and we're going to actually listen to the person. And we're going to hear all of your fears and your worries and your symptoms and how long this has been going on and all your gut feelings about what you think is causing the problem. And we're going to really take all of that into consideration before we even start recommending any kind of testing or any kind of recommendations whatsoever. Everybody needs a good diet to start with. Absolutely. And really, if people are willing to do the diet, then they're probably going to be willing to do some testing if they need it. Now, I am a big fan of genetic testing. And the reason why I am is because of what I've learned along the way. I didn't start off this way, but what I've learned is that, yes, the Lord does give each and every one of us a certain hand to play. We're playing rummy, right? We've got our hand to play. People who develop chronic illnesses, and especially people who develop autoimmune disease, we've known back from when I was in school that, there is a specific genetic predisposition and set of different predispositions that lead us to being able to develop those diseases. But here's the thing that people don't know. You have total control over the way your genes express. Total control, pretty much, okay? Your genes express differently every 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds. And your disease is based on anywhere from 2 to 10% only of your genetics. Now, that's a big deal, okay? 2 to 10% is a big deal. If you're constantly doing something that you don't even know you're doing that are causing your genes to express in a degenerative way, then yes, you will be causing your own illness without even knowing it. And that's why genetic testing is important. And I honestly believe that we should do them on little babies and let mamas and daddies know that, here's your baby's cards to play. Here's how you mitigate and teach the baby how to take care of their bodies so that then they're not going to grow up to have autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses. Yeah. And so I love starting off with a good genetics panel. They're not that expensive, okay? Yes, people can afford them. And then the cards. And what those cards tell you is how to take care of your particular body, the body that God gave you. And that can be done through lifestyle practices, through supplements, through nutrition especially, right? And that MTHFR thing that you have, just eat your broccoli sprouts. It's a beautiful thing, right? Broccoli sprouts or any kind of vitamin or supplement that has some extra methylated B vitamins in them, if people can tolerate those, great, right? So you're not broken just because you have a particular genetic predisposition. You just have to know how to play your cards, right? And so what did God say in Hosea? He said, knowledge is power, and my people die from lack of knowledge.
From lack of it, yeah.
And so if God's science has given us a way to look inside of our own nucleus and see how our genes are expressing based on our choices, then shouldn't we have that knowledge? Shouldn't we be able to play those cards in a better way, right? And so I love to start with genetics. Then I want to see, how we were talking about before, how the basis of getting healthy is first making sure that your cells have everything that they need. You got to bring that up. And at the same time, bringing down the toxins. So the next two tests that are pretty important for most people is, first, we got to see if your cells have everything they need. And you can do that now. Takes about 3 weeks to get the results back. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but that's going to save you a lot of heartache and a lot of suffering down the line.
And a lot of money spent on supplements,
Exactly.
too.
Yeah. People waste so much money just throwing spaghetti at the wall. Let's try this, let's try that. And instead, spend a little money up front on a good solid test so you can see exactly what's happening inside the cell right now. Then use the foods, the lifestyle practices, and if you need them, supplements, which most people do need supplements. We do live in a toxic soup, okay? So supplements are important. They help people to heal faster, okay? And so then you use those things in order to bring the cellular function up. And then the next test, of course, would be a really good toxicity panel. And That's
a good one.
Yes. And really, now, of course, you would expect me to say this being an immunotoxicologist, but this is just a fact of science, okay? And even your doctor will tell you that, look, The more toxins you get, the sicker you are, okay?
That's right.
And this is just logic. And so knowing where your toxic level is very, very important. And the various different types of toxins that you have absorbed over time, probably because you have an MTHFR or you have some other genetic predisposition. So you don't detox these things out as well. These are the people that get the sickest. Mm-hmm. And so being able to see what those toxins are, where their levels are, and then being able to say, okay, if you got really high mold inside your cells, you don't want to play around with that. You have to then discover, how are you absorbing that mold? Are you living in a moldy environment?
Yeah.
And you have to get rid of that because mold mycotoxins are very, very inflammatory. They will make you extremely sick. Or if you're getting exposed to arsenic or other heavy metals, you have to be able to determine, how am I getting these? Maybe it's through my water, or maybe it's through the food that I'm eating. Okay, well, then let's adjust. It doesn't have to be perfect. And people don't have to be afraid of this. It's not that hard. You really can adjust, and you can get those toxins out of your life. And if you need to, do specific protocols to move specifically, targetedly.
That's right.
Moving those toxins out of your body slowly and carefully.
And we don't have time today to get into, chelation therapy but I will tell you that what I've said in the past on this program about shotgun blast liver detoxes, they may help you, but if you have a specific, like aluminum overload, you're going to have to do some kind of chelation. You're going to have to do something that binders and removes, because a lot of what would normally just support the liver isn't going to specifically deal with that metal overload.
Yeah, and
so
the important thing is that most people will jump straight to the detox, or if they find out they have Lyme disease or any kind of a chronic infection that's creating a lot of toxic overload, most people will want to jump directly to killing whatever that bacteria is. And we cannot do that. You cannot jump into a battle without having armor, without having guns. You have to make sure that your cells have everything they need to do that work first. Right. So I want to really caution people, be very, very careful what you see online and, the 7-day detox, the 30-day detox, whatever. Please don't do that until you know whether your cells have everything they need to fight that battle.
Which brings me to something I must say to buttress something that you as the viewer may be wondering. Well, I've had my genetic test and I'm still a mess. I'm going to say this very quickly. One of the reasons that I was not a big fan early on of genetic testing is because that's kind of what I went through. I had 3 people look at my genetic tests, and all of them did the standard, well, you need methylfolate, you don't have enough B12, and I could not deal with methylfolate.
It can give people anxiety attacks if you go too fast.
Brain fog, it made things worse, and I had what I call methyl mountain for like 30 days. I thought I was fixed, and then my body starts. So here's what I want to say. This is the whole point, the whole show. You ready? When I say that I'm becoming persuaded that I am more open than I was a decade ago to genetic testing, it's this caveat. It's in the hands of somebody like a Dorinda Smith.
Yes.
I'm not saying that just because she's here and we're celebrating Dorinda today. I'm saying if you have access to someone who is qualified to tailor a plan for you, then yes, a genetic test can be profound. Shotgun blasting one through popular websites online promising you that your genetics can be, whippersnappered with a little profile with 8 supplements that are going to, you may find benefit from that, but don't be dreadfully discouraged when you end up like I once was. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So if people are interested in getting a good genetics panel run, I typically will recommend ordering it through 3x4 Genetics. You can look online. You can understand all about them. The father of functional medicine, Jeffrey Bland, sits on their advisory board. It's very comprehensive. It is user-friendly. However, you really should have an expert look at it and help you to do everything that you need to do to help your genetics to express properly. And then here at our clinic, that's the Cellular Healing and Longevity Center, we have all the advanced testing available, and we order it for you. And then we make sure that you have, a good consultation so that you can understand your testing. We also have a program that we're doing that really helps people just to get started with their baby steps. And it's an entire program to help you get your energy back, to help you get started with a lot of the free and very simple things that people can do to just get their confidence back and just to start understanding that you can feel better, you can move the needle, you can get better results. And so they can go to our website at risehealchallenge.com.
Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, I can be a fan of genetic testing in the right hands. Dorinda Smith, the right hands. Unfortunately, we're all out of time for everybody here in panel. Jamie, Dorinda, thank you so much for being here with us again. You'll have to come back and do more programs with us in the future.
Yes.
We got to pick that wonderful brain of yours some more. We definitely will be doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to.
I'm Joe Artis Horn. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus Christ. We'll be back.